Well, a very warm welcome back. Thank you very much indeed for joining this afternoon's session of the Alibaba WPP 11/11 Global Shopping Festival broadcast. My name is David Roth from WPP, and I'm your anchor for this series. And we've heard quite a lot about the logistical side, some of the of getting your products to China. We've heard a lot about the ways in which you can make sure that you have the right stock in the right place at the right time. So I thought it would be a really good idea to delve deep into this subject in a way that I think will enlighten you as to how you can take some of that complexity, maybe some of the fear of doing that. And to help us through that particular journey, I'm delighted to welcome Jack Porteous, who is the Client Service Director of Samarkand. Jack, a very, very warm welcome. Thanks very much indeed for joining.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, Jack is a leading expert on all things China and also on how companies can get their goods into and around China. And I suppose some of the difficulties of doing that, the complexity of doing that, and how to make all of that simple so you can pretty much have a sleepless night. Jack, perhaps you can talk a little bit about who Samarkand Global are and what role can they play for you in making some of the complex simple.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. So yeah, as David said, I'm the Client Services Director from Samarkand Global. We're a company of around 170 now, spread across the UK and China, with a couple of smaller offices starting up in France and Japan. And really, we're specialists in cross-border e-commerce to the Chinese market. We're a listed company here in the UK. And in terms of our kind of distribution network in China, we've specialized in the health and beauty segments, which are very popular categories in cross-border e-commerce. But we also have a really strong capability in technology and logistics. And those services are applicable to clients from any sector who are looking at cross-border to China.
Well, Jack, many companies, not just medium-sized businesses, but large businesses as well, have some concerns, maybe sort of conceived concerns about exporting cross-border to China. Let's start a little bit about just understanding more from your perspective of what some of those concerns are. Some of them being probably amazingly justified, some of them probably being urban myths, and what role Samarkand can play in solving those.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, as you know, in a previous life, I worked for the China-Britain Business Council, who provide advice to businesses looking to export to China. So I've heard every single concern that anybody could possibly have about selling to China, I think, over the last few years. With regards to doing e-commerce business in China, I think it really is the scale and the complexity and the cost that are the things that are the biggest concerns when people speak to me about doing business in China. And I think a lot of that is from learned experience or having watched other brands go in and maybe not quite pick the right route to market or the right business model to be able to be successful doing it, and also not quite kind of having a China mindset and a China first mindset of understanding China as an e-commerce ecosystem that exists separately to the West. I think one of the big issues that it takes a little while to overcome as a business when you're new to China is trying to, and it's a really natural thing to do, but trying to associate everything that you're doing in China with a mirror program or a mirror web marketplace or social commerce platform or social media network in the West. So things get really oversimplified. Taobao is eBay, Tmall is Amazon, Little Red Book is Instagram. Actually, none of those things really directly correlate, although they do have some similarities. So I think a lot of those concerns are founded in not quite having dived deep enough into understanding the Chinese e-commerce ecosystem themselves, or by picking a partner who hasn't put the miles in to explain it to them and help get them on board and bring them down that journey.
Now, what are some of the urban myths in your experience of things that people think are much more complicated, more difficult than they are? Then we'll tackle the ones that are complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. So a really specific example from one of the sectors that we work with, China has had a long-standing history of requiring animal testing for beauty products to sell via cross-border e-commerce. That's not required. A lot of people, if they're thinking about selling to China from their own global e-commerce site, the first thing they say is, oh, well, we need to have everything translated into Mandarin immediately, and they think about the cost of translating 5,000 SKUs worth of pages into Chinese and keeping that constantly updated with new assets. Not necessarily true. You don't have to do everything at once, and I think that's kind of my first major message about kind of trying to debunk myths with China. You get a lot of if you want to enter China, you have to go straight to a Tmall Global store, or you have to do everything kind of to start off with and commit a huge amount of marketing. But actually, there are incremental things that you can do to help you understand your customer base, help you generate a feedback loop so that you can get better data, better knowledge, better insight from consumers about which products resonate, why they resonate, why they hate your packaging, why they think that you're too expensive or not expensive enough, which global competitor you're being most compared to, or why they absolutely love your product, what the unique thing is that you would have never thought to highlight when you're talking to your consumers in Europe or your consumers in the US, but it's something that's really specific to the Chinese market, that women in their early 20s really love anti-aging products, which is kind of unusual, right, compared to other markets. So there's kind of a few myths and realities there. I think the other big concern that people often used to come to me with, it's a monumental task, and I think people never quite understand fully where to start. I think Tmall and Alibaba are doing a great job of demystifying that, and that's only got stronger over the years. But you don't have to do it on your own, and actually having partners, working with WPP agencies to understand who your consumer is or to market to them, working with someone like us as a distributor or a logistics partner, working with a social agency who can really help you kind of shape your brand and identify the key messages, give people the reasons to buy your brand. Costs of that add up. The more people you add into the pie, of course, but you don't have to do it alone, and actually doing it alone is kind of difficult.
Now, what are the real difficulties in a sense, and how can those be mitigated?
So there are, as with any e-commerce business, there's always stuff that can go wrong, and always problems to overcome. I think one of the themes that's come up a few times over your programming this week has been working at China speed, and I think that is one of the real problems, and I'm going to apply that specifically to stock. One of the big issues that we see is a product starts doing really well. So it's gone from 10 units a week to 100 units a week to 1,000 units a week, and that can pose really serious structural issues for smaller companies as well as bigger companies sometimes, right? To be able to manufacture to meet the demand and get it through far enough in advance. Forward forecasting in China is difficult because.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, why is it difficult, Jack? I mean, people running businesses for a long time, they've been forward forecasting forever. So what is it about forward forecasting for China that has added complexity?
I think if I'm just breaking my golden rule of not comparing it to the West, if you compare it to the West,
well, they do that just once, okay.
Yeah. You can build up a real picture of your consumer across multiple platforms. In the West, you can track them from Google to Instagram to Facebook to Amazon to your website and see exactly what their journey was, what their consumer patterns are. You've also got great data from your retail partners, and they're doing their forecasting based on their sell-through. So you've probably got years of data to go on. The Chinese consumer is a completely different group of consumers, and actually it's not just one consumer, right? There's a million different subcategories that you could split into in China, and being able, a lot of your forecasting depends on having identified correctly who those groups are, how quickly they'll scale, and then there's a lot more opportunities in China because the e-commerce ecosystem is so much bigger, so much more vibrant, diverse, and always generating new business models, new routes to market, new ways to get get traffic to your pages and to get eyes on your products, is an unexpected live stream that really takes off, and you can sell out of a product that you only thought you were going to sell 2,000 units of this month. Suddenly your 4,000 units that you had in stock have all gone, and you're scrabbling around trying to capture that momentum because you don't want to miss that opportunity after you've just managed to build a huge head of steam behind a product. So I think there's just a lot more variables and a lot more moving parts in China. The market is developing at such a rapid pace. If you look at the top 5 e-commerce platforms from 5 years ago and the top 5 e-commerce platforms now, yes, Tmall will be there, right? But people like VIP are less important and have changed strategy massively over the last 5 years. And conversely, people like Douyin, who are owned by ByteDance, and it's the originator of TikTok, have really moved into the e-commerce space in a big way in the last couple of years, and they launched their own cross-border solution in April as well, with big brands setting up on there. So it's a fast evolving, fast changing, dynamic market that things can switch around really quickly, and forecasting is super difficult.
Now, one of the things that I know that people have large question marks on is the whole aspect of profitability. So maybe you could either nod to this or dispel this as a myth, which is, fundamentally, when you look at the whole sort of end-to-end cross-border trade with China, it's very difficult to make money. True or false?
I think that is a very good question. I think sometimes the answer is true and sometimes the answer is false. To be completely honest, and it really depends on what your goals are as a business as to whether that answer is going to be true or false. If you are an SME and what you want is a small, profitable, sustainable business in China, that is totally possible. But you've got to be really realistic about what's happening. If your total kind of revenue in China in a year is going to be, less than $1 million, then the spending on a Tmall store that you'd have to get to achieve that maybe won't make it profitable. But there are other options available where the margins are a bit better or a bit more favorable. If you're a private equity backed brand, and it's really important to you to get the highest top line revenue, and prove to your private equity investors that you've got potential to be huge in China, you're not going to be profitable because buying market share is expensive, acquiring customers is expensive, especially if you're doing that on the marketplaces that have the highest number of users and the highest number of brands competing for that attention. So for people like that, not so profitable, but they've got a different goal. For smaller brands, if you get the right partner, yes, it can be profitable.
Now, I know there are a number of concerns generally in e-commerce. There's one thing about selling products. There's another thing about the returns, and the complexity of the returns, even when it's in your domestic market, are big enough and costly enough. I know there are a lot of concerns about returns with cross-border trade. Help us out. How does it work? Should people be worried about that?
Yeah, and I mean, naturally, this is, of course, one of the most complex elements of the logistics of cross-border e-commerce. Luckily, if you're selling through a big platform like Tmall or JD, they have their own rules and their own systems in place for how to manage returns, and you can really get some support there. If you're in a category which has a low level of returns, it's not such a big risk. It's something you need to factor in. The reality is getting high quantities of products back out of China isn't the easiest thing to do. And typically what we kind of recommend with our brand partners that we work with, or for our own brands that we market, if we get a return and it's still in a usable condition, we'll use that we'll keep it in our Shanghai office, we'll use it as sampling, we'll use it for other purposes because it's just simply cheaper. You can get it back. It might just take a while. So maybe if you're in a category that normally sees returns of 50% or more, it's going to be a big old impact on your bottom line, and maybe cross-border isn't quite the right route for you. But for lower return categories like supplements or skincare, it's totally viable to use the ones that you've got for other marketing purposes, or for sampling for live streamers or something like that, as long as they're returned in perfect condition.
Now, we are in the first week of 11/11. Feels a little bit longer. The scale of the opportunity, the logistical challenges notwithstanding, you need to plan for 11/11. So again, in your experience, Jack, when do people start to plan, and what are those initial steps that they should be taking?
Yeah, planning. It's one of the big things that you have to do for 11/11. Without a plan, you've not got the stock in place, and you're not going to sell through. I am just going to correct you on where we are in 11/11. For me, this is week 3.
That's true. Yeah, well, I wasn't counting the pre-sales.
We had the pre-sales on Alibaba, on Tmall, and Tmall Global started on the 20th of October. So officially, we've kind of been in 11/11 since the 20th of October.
I stand corrected. You're right.
And as you can tell, I've not quite had time to shave during that time either. But
I'm surprised you didn't have time to sleep, but you look okay on.
But yes, there are hard deadlines to hit. So if you want to get stock in to Tmall for 11/11, there's a deadline in September that you have to hit. So that's bring a few weeks back from that to get your air freight in place and to actually get the stock prepared and ready, because it's normally quite a large amount. In terms of actually planning that stock, if you're a brand that holds a huge amount of stock anyway, it's maybe less of an issue. If you're somebody who manufactures a little bit less regularly and you don't have such a huge stock holding, you need to add your manufacturing time to that kind of planning as well. That becomes easier once you've done one 11/11, because you've got a concrete set of data to go off to plan the following year. If it's your first 11/11, it can be a big challenge, and you can end up with the wrong stock in the wrong place, and too much of one product and not enough of another product. But it's all just about learning if it's your first 11/11, really. The kind of, for us, the key moment when planning really kicks off, and we do planning before this as well. As I said, as soon as 11/11 is over, we'll have to start planning for next year's 11/11 a little bit. But kind of the big moment is after 6/18. So 6/18, the second largest e-commerce shopping festival in China, which is on the 18th of June, 6/18. On the 19th of June, your focus is on 11/11. Then there are other things that happen between Chinese Valentine's Day, graduation season, Mid-Autumn Festival, various other kind of opportunities that, depending on your category, are relevant or not. But your focus from the 19th of June onwards has to be, how is this building up to 11/11, and how am I feeding into it? If you're doing KOL campaigns, if you're doing marketing, you book them 2-3 months before 11/11 starts. Everybody's busy. Everybody's kind of competing for attention. If you want to work with a top celebrity, if you talk to them on the 19th of October, they've got no space for you. And if they do, it's at 10 times the price that it would have been 3 months ago. So it really is about kind of getting in as early as you can and making sure that you're working closely with all of your China partners to coordinate that effort.
You mentioned coordination, working with partners. How much of the process of getting ready for 11/11 is a team sport? I mean, how integrated do you need to make sure that your internal workings, your workings with partners like yourself? How do you need to ensure that this is one cohesive, high-performance team?
I mean, it's so important. I can't overstate enough how important it is that the merchant, the brand owner, the distributor or TP, so us or whoever your partner is, if you've got an outsourced marketing agency as well, they need to be super involved from the start. And then even within those three organizations, there'll be different teams and different moving parts as well. So for us, it's our supply chain team and our Tmall management, as well as all of our sales teams that operate other key sales channels for us, because it's not everything happens on Tmall, so you have to have a coordinated approach across all of them to make sure that you're not just competing with yourself on discounts on different platforms. It's all got to be coherent with what the brand's vision and strategy is globally. 11/11 is a sales promotion, right, at its core, but you really don't just want to go down a 50% off, 60% off kind of rabbit hole, because it's very hard to get out of that once you've started doing it. So having a vision from the start, and then having a coordinated idea of when marketing's going live, when particular promotions are happening, when you can start trailing your pre-sale promotion sets, when you can talk about your extra mad hour 10% off that you're doing for the first hour at midnight on the 11th of November, all of that kind of stuff. It takes planning and coordination across teams, and there has to be ways of speaking that cut across just occasionally having a call or sending an email, right? We've got active WeChat groups or Ding Talk groups for every single brand that we work on, where people across our organization and external organizations are constantly talking about what needs to change, what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow, what's happening in 3 months' time.
Now, one of the things that people are also very concerned about is the whole issue regarding taxation and how the tax system works, and at which point in the process is tax payable. Can you explain a little bit about that? And again, I know from what you do, how can you take the complexity of the tax layer away so you can concentrate on sorting out your campaigns as a business, as opposed to worrying about tax consequences?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess let's talk about it in two different bits. So the first is, if you're working with a marketplace, they will deal with the tax, right? And the price that is shown to the end consumer includes tax. It usually includes logistics as well. And cross-border e-commerce isn't just a kind of catch-all term for selling things from outside of one country to inside of China, right? It's a specific customs and tax route that is legally enshrined in China, that gives consumers beneficial tax rates on categories of goods. So often it's a 9% tax rate, which is VAT is only charged at 70% of the prevailing rate. So for most products it's 9%. For some it's a little bit more than that, just over 20%. So if you're working with a platform, it's all factored in, and the thing that you need to get right to make sure that you're not worried about the tax is your pricing to start off with, just to ensure that the final price you're showing the consumer, you've got enough margin, your partner's got enough margin for the tax to be taken off. If you're selling to China from your own website, and this is a massive trend that we are watching closely and we are seeing really grow, is not only just Chinese consumers being desperate to buy products direct from brands on their .com websites, partially driven by COVID and travel restrictions. So they still want to be able to get access to a brand's full range, or to see what Selfridges or their favorite shop in Paris or their favorite shop in New York has listed this season, and what the new and exciting products are. So Chinese consumers are going there, but these websites are more aware of the need to cater to them. So I checked this morning, Net-a-Porter have got Double 11 offers running, ASOS have got Double 11 offers running, look fantastic, feel unique. A lot of these multi-brands, as well as individual brands like MAC, Nike, a lot of major brands from their own websites are running Double 11 promos. The tax for that, typically, merchants just haven't worried about it. A Chinese consumer checks out, parcel gets sent with a major international delivery company who I won't name, and and most of the time it'll just arrive and nobody worries about it. 20%, 30% of the time, the product gets stopped at China customs. Your consumer, disgruntled, either doesn't bother and claims a refund, or has to go down to the post office with their ID card to go and pay the additional tax, which isn't at the reduced cross-border rate because it didn't go through the official channel, because it wasn't for sale on a kind of cross-border registered platform. One of our solutions at Samarkand, which is called Nomad Checkout, provides that customs integration, which makes it a much better solution for brands and a much better solution for consumers. We make it easy because we integrate with the logistics. So if you're in the UK, you have to send to us in the UK. We've also got hubs around the world you can send to. For the consumer, they know that they're getting their product delivery duty paid. We can knock off the local VAT, so 20% in the UK, and then add the China cross-border tax. Consumer knows they're getting it for the best price. They know they're getting authentic goods directly from the brand. And then they get a tracking link with SF Express, a Chinese delivery company. So they know they're going to get it to their house and they know when they're going to get it. So we are helping brands and merchants give the same experience to their China consumers that they want to give to consumers worldwide, to make their website a great place to shop, and provide that kind of luxury and premium experience and the safety of knowing when and how you're going to get your products when you shop.
Now, at Samarkand, you also have your own range of products in the health and beauty space.
Yeah.
What are you doing for this 11/11 in terms of marketing, promotional activity, and even live streaming?
So we've got, too many things to talk about in our remaining couple of minutes, right? But we, as a company, our brands, we're trying to really align with Chinese consumer objectives and what they want out of life. So we're really focused on the health space. So we've got a probiotic supplement brand, and we've also this year acquired a fertility supplement brand, which is really in line with what the Chinese government is trying to achieve, as well as what, concerns of Chinese people. And we really want products to enhance their lives. In terms of what we're doing at Double 11, we've done some direct KOL activations. So we've had a bit of a stock rejig this morning after we ran out of one product. So we had to do an emergency repack of blisters into outer packaging of about 5,000 units because the KOL activation had gone better than we had forecast. For the fertility supplement brand Zeta West, we've launched a Tmall Global flagship store this year, which is great. We just launched it not that long ago, so we're taking part in some of the Double 11 events, including live streaming.
Give us a feel, Jack, for live streaming. You've been doing it for a little while now, I know. Pretty much everybody's talked so far in one form or another about live streaming. What's your experience?
Live streaming can be the best sales opportunity you ever get in your life. To get there, it can be an absolute nightmare, and I think it's worth upfronting that, right? You are dealing with very talented and magnetic personalities who are live streaming to their millions of fans. They are celebrities. This is like dealing with Mariah Carey and asking her to promote your probiotic supplement brand, right? Like, there is a lot of convincing that you need to do. The commercials need to be really good for them to do that. And it's a super established business model in China. It's super popular. There are people like Li Jiaqi, Austin Lee, and Via who are live streamer celebrities. So they were live streamers first, and that's how they become celebrities. But increasingly, comedians, actors, sports people, singers, dancers are also taking part in the live stream economy. And, you know, some of these people have got huge egos, and they really are spoilt for choice with the products that they can take. So really difficult. Make sure you've got a savvy team who are good at negotiating, getting the right slot. You know, the time where you're actually featured in a live stream is super important. You need to make sure that you've got a great copywriting team who are giving amazing briefs to the live streamer, because talking for 5 minutes, I'm sure you or I could do it, David, because we do nothing but talk, right? But talking for...
We do some other things other than talking, but yeah, oh. I take your point, Jack.
Talking for 5 minutes about one product, or 10 minutes about one product, you've really got to have a lot of talking points and a lot of things to say. So you've got to really make sure that you're making that live stream as comfortable as they can be to talk about your product and all of the amazing benefits, USPs, everything you've got. You know, what exact percentage of this ingredient, where does that ingredient come from? Is it seaweed from Australia, or is it from Chile, or is it from somewhere else, right? Like, which beach was it collected from, and how old was the person who picked it, right? It's often kind of the most maddening level of detail, but that's because they've got so much time to fill, and they really want to give their consumers the best amount of knowledge they can. The other really important thing is you've got to give them the best deal. Most of these live streamers are famous and followed and watched because they are giving the best value to their customers, and that is why they trust them. So you have to do that. And if you 3 months later go and give a better deal to somebody else, you're never going to work with that first person again, right? So you've really got to make sure that you're being honest and planning out what the offers and what SKUs you're going to offer to the live streamers. I think the kind of risk point that I'd associate with live stream is stock. There are Austin Lee, Via, you have to have a certain amount of stock in place before they will sign a contract with you. And same is true of other top live streamers as well. They'll offer you no guarantee that it's going to sell through. It's normally a pretty good bet with the top live streamers, but they don't offer you any guarantee. So if you've got to have, £500,000 worth of stock or whatever it is, sat in your Sanyao Alibaba bonded warehouse to take part in one of these live streams, you've got to be ready for that to not sell as well as for it to sell, and have some backup plans for what to do with it.
Wise advice. Jack, you've obviously been looking around for your clients and also for your own ranges, what everybody else has been up to over the last couple of weeks. What have you seen that's interesting?
Double 11 is always fascinating, right? And I think I'm sure, spoken at length about Austin Lee and Via and how much they achieved on day one of pre-sales, right? The 20th of October was an incredible day for Austin Lee and Via, and the amount of sales they generated. So live streamers are an ongoing kind of big part of the market. They're not going anywhere. I think this has been a trend for it was certainly a trend at 618 and at double 11 last year as well, but it's really intensified, in an increasingly competitive market. Chinese brands are taking more of the top spots in categories that historically were dominated by international brands. The way that top international brands are competing isn't necessarily by cutting their prices further than they used to, it's by adding additional value. So, you buy one large product, you're getting 10 gift-size travel products that you can distribute to your friends, or that it's a different product so you can try it yourself and sell across the range. Challenging for brands because often those small products aren't, super cheap to produce. It's not free to give them away, right? It eats into your margin. But if at least you can merchandise across your range and get different products into people's hands, then there's a real opportunity there. So I think gift with purchase or value add kind of deals are something that are going to only grow in size and scale over the next couple of major promotions. And then the last one, I kind of spoke about it before, more sites outside of Tmall taking part in big Double 11 promotions. All of the Chinese sites have been doing it. So we've got things going on across Tmall, Little Red Book, Douyin, JD, WeChat stores, Taobao stores. We've got a huge array of different offers with different brands and different merchants, whether it's us selling D2C or whether it's us selling through resellers. But then also the international sites like Net-a-Porter and Feel Unique really taking Double 11 a lot more seriously than they used to. So we're seeing kind of a big kind of spread, and I'm sure Alibaba will have absolutely smashed their sales target. They always do. It's such a well-run operation. But I'll be intrigued to see what kind of figures Douyin and Kuaishou and some of the other kind of smaller platforms put out there as well after Double 11 to see how they've performed.
Now, finally, Jack, what advice would you give to brands who are thinking about participating in 11/11 for 2022? Does the clock start now?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a practical point of view, you have to have taken part in at least one, I think it's the S level promotion they're called in Alibaba before Double 11 to be eligible for the official Double 11. So if your store's not live by kind of July time, you've got very few opportunities to be able to actually then qualify for the official pre-sale and the official kind of activities that Alibaba and Tmall run. So finding a partner, thinking about it now, thinking about what stock you're going to need, trying to identify what your hero products are going to be in China, getting some market feedback. It's all part of something that needs to really, start happening at the latest in kind of the next month or two, if you've got any plans to take part in Double 11 next year.
Well, you said that you and I were both good at talking. I suppose the proof of that pudding is in the eating. We have run out of time. All left for me to say, listen, Jack, thank you very much indeed. That was very illuminating, and I think you've given a lot of people a lot of insight. It is a great opportunity. It's not as scary as it might appear. There are people and processes to help take the logistical complexity away from you so that you can concentrate on what you do best in a sense as a business, which is really understand your consumers, understand what the proposition could be, and making that as relevant as possible to a Chinese consumer for not just 11/11, but as you say, Jack, there are a lot of shopping festivals both in China and in Asia, and as we're seeing more and more right across the world. But for the moment, Jack Porteous, the Client Service Director of Samarkand Global, thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.